Welcome all to another episode of Slave Food Conversations, where two African American physicians explore the role of racism as a unique form of stress and the weaponization of food in the creation of health disparities in the African American community, irrespective of income. They discover eating a whole food, plant-based diet in urban communities is possible and is the key to eliminating health disparities. But before we start our discussion, on behalf of the Slave Food team, we would like to celebrate and acknowledge the life of the incredibly talented, regal, and iconic actress Cicely Tyson. Unfortunately, she passed away yesterday at the age of 96. All of the secrets to her ageless appearance and longevity have yet to be unlocked. However, Tyson swore by a vegan diet and even did 60 push-ups every morning to keep her body in shape. The actress has stated, "If I'm going to be here a while, I want to be well." She truly was and always will be remembered as the beautiful, ageless queen. On this episode, the doctors are joined by special guest, Esosa E, to talk about how to live your best life by sustaining a healthy lifestyle. We will now introduce our speaker for this episode's eye-opening session. Esosa E, MS, CNS, LDN, is a dynamic, multiple-time award-winning actress, writer, producer, and health expert. Esosa utilizes her renown within the entertainment industry to educate others on health. She earned her master's in nutrition and integrative health. Her nickname, Raw Girl, stems from her website, Raw Girl in a Toxic World. This website provides knowledge on health and holistic tips in order to encourage others to live a better lifestyle. Esosa founded an online program and podcast called Staying Ageless. That was created to aid women 30 and up achieve ideal health as well as keeping their youth through Esosa's behavioral coaching and lifestyle tips. You can learn more about Esosa through her website, therawgirl.com, and her Instagram at therawgirl. Dr. Batiste and Dr. Walsh, welcome to the show. Have a great one.
All right. How are you? Good to see you. Wow. That was a great intro. I got excited just hearing her talk about you. I have to tell you. You said, now I knew I had researched you. I mean, now when I first met you, so Eric, you don't know, when I first met her, I was on the show and she was somewhat quiet and subdued. I didn't really get a good feel, but she was cool. It was a good vibe with her. And then we reached out and we reconnected, and I wanted to bring her on because I was starting to research her. And I said, man, I mean, actress, producer, world traveler, lifestyle enthusiast. And so I knew we needed to start this year off. And so I welcome out to those who follow us on Slave Food. It's great seeing you back in 2021, as we mentioned last week, but welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I would say, I've been excited. Columbus has been talking about how amazing you are, and I can tell just by the outfit he was right. She came in killing it tonight. Look at me and Columbus look real plain and regular. I'm liking that. That.
Well, that's not that hard for someone to show us up like that, but she did it. She did it. But amazing. Okay, so I want to know, you're a world traveler.
Yeah.
And so I got your place of origin wrong, completely wrong.
Yeah.
Tell me where your favorite place in all of Africa is.
Well, my favorite place in all of Africa, which I think is the place that I have not been yet, which would be Zanzibar in Tanzania. But of the places that I've actually been, because I really want to go to Zanzibar really bad, but COVID is messing with my life. But I would say of the places that I've actually lived and spent a considerable amount of time, that's really rough. I would say it would be probably Accra or Cape Town. But the problem with Cape Town is gorgeous. it's whatever, but there's a lot of racism. It's not Johannesburg, right? So, and you can go to Cape Town and have this illusion that life is grand because you're Black and fabulous and you have money and, the dollar has power. So you're having fun. But if you stay there long enough, you'll really start to see that racism. Like, you're like, woo, this is a whole nother level because it's very overt. It is not quiet racism. It's very much like, and Black excellence is sometimes detested. So
yeah,
beautiful places I've ever been, but I don't know if I could ever stand to stay there for a longer period of time.
I've spent time in both of those cities, and I would agree with you. Cape Town, I've been there multiple times. It is very racist. And I have stories and stuff from time in that area. So, but it is gorgeous. It is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so switching gears, tell me about what is this thing, the Ageless, staying ageless? What is that about?
Right. So I started to become obsessed with longevity in my early 20s. I basically was at like this entertainment event. I met this woman who I thought was my peer. And she was like 20 years older than me. And I was like, what? And then I proceeded to ask her all these questions like, what are you doing? What are you eating? She told me to go read a book by Dr. Layla Africa. I think it was African Holistic Health. It set me on my merry way. And I was like, what just happened there? That is so interesting. You really can, like, if you take care of yourself, you really can look a certain kind of way, no matter how old you are. And then I started just then getting obsessed with like researching people who were over 70 or over 60, and just had able-bodied, no medication, no disease. Both of my grandmothers actually lived to over 100.
Wow.
So
you have good genes.
I have longevity in my family. So I was like, this is so interesting. Like, but I don't really feel like, even if you have it in your genes, I don't really actually feel like you can take that for granted. You still have to like do the daily things. And in my mind, I'm like, in our modern society, like I think about like my grandmothers and living in Africa, eating like, whole foods that came from their backyard versus me in like this modern world and the technology and all this stuff. It's like, well, how do you replicate that now? Is that even possible? I'm just curious about it. But I do think, so it was this kind of personal process of me getting obsessed with how do you look and stay healthy for a long time. But it's not about just the vain things. It's also really just about being disease-free, having energy, having optimal health. Like people like Jack LaLanne, who like towed 70 rowboats when he was 70.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Like the bounds of human performance, like we don't ever really reach our full limit. Like a lot of us don't push ourselves. And I'm interested in like, what happens if you could push yourself? Like what happens if you're not, if you're not encumbered by, a chronic, condition. So that's where it started. And then
So I have to ask you, so what about, you mentioned like Jack LaLanne, some of these older people, what about like the whole Cicely Tyson thing? I actually didn't know that
I didn't know she was vegan.
Yeah, that she adopted that.
Well, I knew because I was at a raw vegan restaurant in New York and we looked over and she was over there eating with her big hat, like a little church. And I was like, oh my God. So we went over and talked to her, but like she was eating like a full on raw vegan, like 7-course meal with her friends.
Oh, that's incredible.
Like, this woman is fabulous. Who knew?
Oh, yeah. Wow. And that makes sense. I mean, she looked incredible. Looked incredible.
Her mental functioning was still there. She was
She was still acting up. I mean, like up until probably just before COVID.
Exactly. So it's like, this is someone who was able-bodied, able-mind, all of that stuff, and just living her best life up into the last minute. And that's really what it's more so about for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what I think some of my clients are coming from a place where they're not even well yet. So we have to get them to being well. But it's like, what if we took care of ourselves so well that we could look forward to a life like Miss Cicely, where we're really pushing the bounds and we don't have to worry about medication and we could work until we're 95.
That's right. That health span, getting that health span is the key. That really is.
For sure.
So is that kind of how the whole idea of I think the title of your website, Raw Girl in Toxic World, kind of bringing those concepts inside of modern society of food deserts and food swamps and the jungle that many of us live in? Which, by the way, where are you from? Tell us where you're from in the States.
Well, I've moved around a lot. I've been around the block, Columbus. Okay? So I currently live in Fairfax, Virginia. I was born in New York, but even as a kid, we moved around. And I think that's why I like traveling so much. I mean, at one point I lived in Jamaica when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
I grew up in the Fairfax, Virginia, DC, DMV area is what they call it, DMV. Mm-hmm. But yeah, my trajectory is really interesting because I'm now a certified nutrition specialist and behavioral coach, but I basically just started nerding out. Like I was already doing my thing as an actress. I have a degree in fashion design, which is why I come dressed.
Love it.
But I started working as an entertainer, producer, whatever, right? So I was doing that, but I'd been vegan since I was 13 years old. I decided not to do dairy or anything. So I was already vegan, plant-based. And then I was having health issues. I think around 2008 it was. I had really horrible acne, chronic fatigue, a lot of issues, but I was also eating vegan junk food, child. They thought I worked in the vegan bakery. They were like, ma'am, do you work here? No, I'm sorry. Just give me my carrot cake. So, I had to like get over my sugar addiction and get a bunch of processed vegan foods out of my diet. Soy had to go. There's certain things that had to go from my particular diet for me to end up being the way I was. But I was living in New York City at the time, doing acting stuff. I moved back to Fairfax, Virginia, and I could finally hear my own thoughts. And I had the idea to start a blog. I heard God say, start a blog. And I was like, what is a blog? I had to Google it. And then I decided to call it Raw Girl in a Toxic World, because the more that I researched, I was into the raw food thing at the time, but the more that I researched, the more that I felt like, man, there's just so much stuff working against people when they're trying to be healthy. It's like we got the environment, then we got this like the food system. And when you start looking at the labels, you're like, oh my goodness, look at all these chemicals in my food. There's just so much stuff. So that's where it started as blogging. I literally wrote like 3 times a day for 5+ years. And what happened was, or 3 times a week for 5+ years. And what happened was my readers started to message me with their personal health issues, like serious health issues. And I was like, ma'am, I'm sorry, I'm not a doctor. Can you please go find a health professional to help me? And I got really tired of turning people away. And I was like, I really want to figure out how I could help people with different serious chronic conditions or not, or just want to level up their health, but through a nutritional lens. And that's how I figured to go back to school for my master's. And I found my school. Thank God I found them, because my school was amazing. It really just equips like some of the best nutritionists. And so
what school is that again?
I went to Maryland University of Integrative Health, and so did the nutritionist who works with me. And it really helps because we come from the same background, but they train a lot of certified nutrition specialists, and it's all from a holistic perspective. So we're trained to look at diet, supplements, lifestyle, everything, piece it together, all the nutritional deficiencies. We read blood work. So we're kind of a different type of dietitian. We're not just the nutritionist standpoint. Like when I worked in a clinic, I was the only person who was able to then take the nutritional recommendations and tailor it specifically to specific conditions. And so that just gave us it gives us a little leg up. So the training was really amazing. So I kind of became a nutritionist. I was not planning to become a nutritionist. I was not looking for it. It was progressive nerding out and realizing I was obsessed, and then wanting to help people, and then wanting to help people responsibly and be credentialed. So then I went to get my master's, and that's how we ended up. So it went from the blog to now being, doing nutritional consultation and programs.
No, that's great. That's incredible. I love that. And that speaks a lot to kind of your platform. We'll talk about that a little bit more shortly, but just to kind of dive into the science and not just speak off the cuff off of your experience, but to really look in that and to get the training. And we all know as that physicians don't even have the training. that we don't receive the training, and it takes intention. But so to go through that it's impactful. But I have to ask you, because we had a sidebar conversation before, I forget when, about African superfoods, and you actually brought the term up, and I was like, tell me about African superfoods and what you found, and what some of the issues, some of the things surrounding that.
Yeah, so I just love African superfoods. I mean, I get the superfoods, for those who are like, what is a superfood? It's really a term created to sell stuff, but it's I consider a superfood a food that gives you an extraordinary amount of nutrition, in one serving, or you could use it as sort of even a replacement for a multivitamin. Those are the ones that I really consider superfoods. So African superfoods I find are so fascinating. My favorite ones are moringa. Moringa has 92 nutrients and 46 antioxidants. Crazy. It has all 8 essential amino acids in it, a bunch of minerals in it, more potassium than bananas, like 3 times potassium bananas, tons of vitamin C. It's just amazing. And they've used it even in African villages where kids had, distended bellies and people are malnourished. They've reversed malnourishment just by having mothers take the moringa powder and sprinkle it in all the meals. So it's very powerful stuff, and it could be used even sort of like a daily sort of supplement or multivitamin, where you could just add it to your smoothie. You can mix it into a savory meal and not really even taste it. I use it for all kinds of things. I make a gluten-free bread that I put moringa and chlorella in, and the bread is kind of like green, but it's like I'm eating bread with a lot of nutrition in it. So moringa is one of my favorites. I recommend to my client all the time. Moringa, the actual plant, I found it when I was in Ghana, and I was staying in Ghana for an extended period for a film project. So I was there. And so I would go and meet these farmers, and they would just take me and show me the stuff. And I would get huge bags for like not that much money. And that's also when I found baobab. Baobab is super cool. So baobab, it takes like 200 years for a fruit to flower on a baobab tree. It's unbelievable. Like some of the baobab trees are thousands of years old. And baobab fruit is almost like 50% fiber. And that fiber is prebiotic, which is really good for your gut. And then we got tons of vitamin C in it, tons of potassium, magnesium, some really great minerals. So I like usually with baobab, I focus on either if someone needs more vitamin C or potassium, I say, just try some put that in your smoothie. It has kind of like a tart taste, so it works really well in like a fruit smoothie or something like that. Other ones that I really like, I love injera, which is a lot of people know if they eat Ethiopian food, they eat the flat bread, but not all injera is created equal. So if you go sometimes in the States, they make injera and they mix in wheat flour. You don't want that one. You want the original gluten-free one made with teff, because teff is a legit superfood. It has all 8 essential amino acids, potassium, magnesium, phosphorus, iron, has enough iron that sometimes women crave it around their cycle kind of thing. So injera is pretty amazing. Also gluten-free, also vegan. Really amazing thing to supplement. What else? I also like, and this was a recent one that I tried. I hadn't tried it yet. And then someone was like, you should really try it. You should try this brand. So I checked it out. It's called fonio. Fonio is a grain, similar to it's like a quinoa or a couscous.
Okay.
It cooks really fast. I was really surprised at how fast it cooked. And it's kind of, to me, gives me a couscous feel, but 12 grams of protein serving, has a good amount of B vitamins in it. It's really simple to cook, tons of minerals. So there's all of these foods in Africa. Africa is just so interesting because there's all these herbs and foods. Yeah. They have a really large amount of nutrition in them. So for instance, let me give you an example, because a lot of people here in the States are like acai, or they're like, goji berries. And it's like moringa is way higher on the scale than even acai, which is like, whoa, wait, how is that even possible? Like on the ORAC scale, so. Yeah, so it's really cool. These are some of the ones that I love the most.
My question for you: where do you find these things in the States? You're in the DC area.
Yeah.
I would hope to imagine there's some really good like global supermarket. There's a good one. Used to be a good one in Atlanta. Whenever I go to Atlanta, I'd go to. Is there? How do people find some of these things stateside?
Yeah, so if you want moringa, go to my profile on Instagram at the Raw Girl and click shop the superfoods I like, and you'll find a link to True Moringa, which was actually a company founded by my friend Kwame. We're in the same Entrepreneur Alliance, and I support him because I know him and I know what they're doing, and I know that they're working with farmers and they're actually helping farmers, and they sell moringa in packets, and they also sell moringa oil, which I use on my face twice a day, because who doesn't want 92 nutrients and 46 antioxidants pummeled into their face?
All right. I'm about to give me some moringa oil.
Me too.
Moringa oil.
I will put a.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. No. So that's a place that you get moringa, and then like Baobab, there you can order it. There's brands on Amazon and stuff like that. I have specific. Whenever I work with clients, I just tell them where to go. So you can find it. It's not a problem. I'm very big on obviously kind of putting a face to who I'm supporting. Like I want to know that somebody's getting some benefits from this.
No, that's huge. That's huge. So if, getting that way, you're talking about a lot about the health, and you mentioned that about the nutrients, and for women, I know that your focus is on women an awful lot.
Yeah.
What do you think? Tell us about how you get someone to make the change. I mean, what's your go-to? So I'm not gonna call out any names, but there's a young lady who I know who might be resistant to change, right? So how would you craft? Give me a one-liner, right? You give me your elevator pitch to make someone change.
It's not an elevator pitch. So I have a process. So for instance, I'll give you the framework that I use in my Staying Ageless 30 Plus class, which women have lost 30 pounds. They reverse hypertension, diabetes. We had a woman who started last class on 3 medications at the end of 8 weeks on none. I'm actually interviewing her on my Instagram Live on Sunday. And so every single time people have all these crazy, testimonials. Yeah. But the process I walk them through, I call it my CADDY method. And the C in CADDY stands for clarify. It's clarify, assess, activate, test, and implement. And I can break down each step. So clarify really is, what is your why? Most people don't do things. They know they should exercise. They know they should eat their vegetables, sort of. You know what I mean? They know what they should, but they don't have a compelling enough reason why. And no one ever helps them develop one. And if you don't have a compelling enough reason why, you're not going to do it. My compelling enough reason why is that I would like to be like Angela Bassett and wear a bikini at 70. I would love to be, you know what I mean? I would love to be like Silly. That is compelling enough for me to get up every day and do my workout. For someone else that might not be. So I have to work with each person to figure out what is the thing that's going to make them, what is the thing that's going to get them going? It's a collaborative process, right? But for me, it's not only just like, what is your why? It's kind of like, this is what we do in the class too. We craft a vision of what is this new identity that you're living into. Why? It's way more powerful to say, who do I have to be in order to be 15 pounds thinner than, oh, how do I lose 15 pounds? It's way more compelling. Of course, who you have to be disciplined. You have to be someone who honors themselves and takes care of themselves. You see what I'm saying? So it's then more of a vision versus then it's like, and then instead of being myopically focused on the results, you focus on the actions and who you have to become. And that's what I have my clients do. And then that is what we focus on. Of course I will check in if they're trying to lose weight. I'll check in maybe every other week. How's the weight going? But it naturally is going to do it.
Yes.
They're doing the actions. So that's the clarification.
I just have to say, I love that. I don't want to disrupt the flow, but I love that. And the reason why I love that so much is because the fact, I think too often people focus on the finish line. They focus on the goal and they avoid the process. They avoid the steps that come into play and figuring out, I'm not worried about, I used to tell my kids, and I would say this at the beginning, I don't really care about your grades.
Right.
I care about what you're doing on a daily basis. Are you studying? Are you putting in the effort on a regular basis? Because that's what's going to pay off in the long run. So I think that's huge, because I feel like you're saying the same thing. And
And when you do that, you train people to value that, to value the process, versus being like, oh, I lost 15 pounds, so now I don't have to do nothing. I'm good.
Exactly.
You know? So the next thing is to assess. And the assessment is literally like someone would sit down with you or I, and we do a consultation. My clients, I sit with them for an hour and a half. I go through their entire health history from birth until now. I'm trying to figure out why they ended up in the situation they're in. I'm trying to understand them. I also assess their actual diet and see what nutrition is missing from it. I assess any medication, nutrient depletions, that whole shebang, right? So we're just taking a temperature of where you're at. It's like, check out your blood work. Do you have a diagnosis? What's your issue? What's going on here? That's the assessment. Then the next part is activate. So when you activate, what you're going to do at this point is figure out, how do I make these? So when you assess, you're going to also, in the assessment, you're going to figure out what habits you need to fulfill that vision, right? So now I have the habits I need to fulfill the vision. And now I need to make those habits actually implemented in my real life, which means I have to make it easy for them to happen. So what I need to do is, if it's a good habit that I need to implement, I need to figure out how to make it easy, how to make it very visible, how to put cues in my environment that might get me to start doing that thing, how to make it attractive, and how to make it satisfying. And the reason why that's really important is because bad habits are immediately satisfying, but have long-term negative consequences. Whereas good habits usually are not immediately satisfying. It's not to just do that workout and feel horrible, but long-term, it leads you to like the holy grail of being fit and feeling great and all that stuff, right? So you have to figure out, okay, I have these good habits I want to do, so I got to do all these things to activate them and make them work. And then if I have bad habits, I need to make those bad habits invisible, which means throw out whatever it is. Don't have it around. Like, just don't make it easy for yourself. There's a reason why fast food is fast. It's easy to get it. And that's why it makes it really easy to create a habit. So get rid of it. Don't have it around. You need to make the bad habit somehow unsatisfying. So it's already really satisfying to you, but you need to figure out how to make it unsatisfying. And that might be, there's a million ways to do this. And I could go into some stories of things that I've done with clients, but there's a million ways to do this, but it's really important, or else you'll just keep going back. And I guess I would say with the bad habits too, sometimes I'm also really looking for a replacement. So I need to understand, what are the human needs that doing this thing is, giving that person. There are certain human needs that we fulfill by doing things. And so someone is getting something out of doing this, whether it be overeating, maybe they're getting comfort from it. They're getting love and connection with themselves for doing it, whatever it is. But they can get love and connection by talking to someone, or they can get love and connection from another way. So sometimes they need to replace that negative habit with something else that gives them the same reward, does not lead to the same negative result.
Wow.
So, that is, once again, I don't know if folks out there really understand, but you're really breaking down science right now, because what you're saying is it's layered in science. There's actually science behind every little thing that you're mentioning, in terms of the steps and what research has shown. Everything from making the positive foods that you want to eat visible, not hiding your fruit in a crisper, not hiding those things and putting the other things out. Not saying I don't want to watch television, but we have our dining rooms or living rooms centered around the television. And, even to something that popped up, and I had to pull it up, and it was like something that an author said. He said, the best way to change long-term behavior is with short-term feedback. The more immediate the feedback you get, the quicker you can make adjustments in your behavior. And that's really what you were speaking about, is trying to really tailor the feedback that's there. But I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that what you're saying is, it's science. It's not just, smoke and mirrors out there, that what you're using. That's huge.
Sure. And that's part of what I teach in my class too. I actually do teach a little bit about how the brain works, so that they can understand how to trick their own brains going forward, because it's important that they kind of lift the veil off of this thing called habits, it's not really about willpower, child. Like, you really need to work to understand how your brain works and how your brain is going to seek reward. And you can create reward for your healthy habits and take your life that way, or you can ignore it and just kind of end up wherever you end up, which is not where most of us want to be.
Right.
So the other ways that you can activate are community, which is what I create in the course. You can activate by paying attention to external pressures that certain habits have. So some habits are tied to complete peer groups, people who smoke with people, or they always drink when they go out with those buddies. Like, you got to pay attention. If you want to break that habit, then it's like, wait a minute, this entire peer group is linked to this habit. So then it's like, well, I guess I got to find some new friends, I got to find some stuff. I got to do some stuff to make this happen. So those are things that I pay attention to, but I create external pressure by creating the class environment, because you got to deal with me. You've paid money. Now you got all these other women here. So you're going to do something, you know what I'm saying? So that's how we create the activation in the course. And then the last two steps are test and implement. So then you're going to take the habits that are now activated and you're just test them out in your real life and see where the kinks are. Sometimes you mean to, I have so many clients who mean to meal plan, they're like, oh, this grand, idea of all these meals, these healthy meals I'm going to make. And I'm like, child, you're not going to, just look at me in the eye. You are not going to make that when you get home, are you? You're going to be tired. And so sometimes it's just like, okay, how do I make it easier for myself? Well, maybe I need to get a meal delivery service. And sometimes my clients do that. And then what they do is they get exposed to all these different new plant-based things. And then they're like, okay, I could make that myself and I can make it better. And so then they go and actually start cooking. But sometimes you need a little jumpstart that makes it a little bit easier, because if it's just as easy as it would be to get some fast food, to just go in the fridge and get the pre-prepared thing, you're likely to do it. Whereas if I just leave you to your own devices, you might not. So you're going to test it out. You're going to see where the kinks are. You're going to see how you're going to adjust it. And then you're going to implement it. And you need to implement it for at least, in our class, we implement for 30 days. But it's really a little bit more than 30 days, because we're doing 2 months, and we start sort of in the first month, like, all right, go ahead and get started, So, and then it's really just about rinse and repeat. And one of our mantras is, don't break the train, never miss twice. Don't beat yourself up. Just get up the next day and go again.
Love it. Love it. That's one of the things we promote, is essentially having the old school kindergarten style rewards calendar. And you get out there and you X every day that you're doing what you need to do. And you may miss a day, but you just don't want to miss 2 days in a row. You don't want to break the chain. You want it to continue on. Yes.
And part of what you're saying right now is connected to another concept that I use a lot. I created this concept of, like, we've all heard of threshold, right? So there's a certain threshold. A threshold is like the consistency, intensity that it is needed for a phenomenon or reaction to happen. That's the general definition. I have a term called habit threshold. Basically, what I'm trying to do with each of my clients is have them reach a certain habit threshold, which is the intensity and consistency of specific healthy habits that help them reach their health goals. And it works every single time, but you have to get somebody. The problem is that when you're starting out and you're sick, it's kind of like you're pushing a boulder up a hill, and it's really hard. It's hard to get the momentum. But if you hit that middle point, which is I would say is similar to what Malcolm Gladwell calls the tipping point, like the tipping, the middle, it starts to get easy. And then before you know it, all of a sudden you don't have diabetes. Before you know it, you don't have this problem, right? But it takes the harder work at the beginning and dealing with all the emotional stuff that may come up. And I don't really feel like it. And oh, I missed today. Let me do it tomorrow. You got to get through that stuff, and you got to be consistent and just be dogged and determination to keep getting up and doing it again until you hit that tipping point.
That's great. That's great.
Awesome.
How have you overcome any challenges inside of urban communities, inside of our community, African-American communities, with really getting people to adopt change? Whether it's from environment or if it's just from a mindset, have you encountered any of that? Any words of advice for people out there?
Any words on how to?
Yeah, how there's some folks, obviously we know there's a deal of people who live inside food deserts and food swamps. You mentioned that about the fast foods, that they're trained and they've been brought up on those foods. So
Yeah.
they feel that's their culture. So you're essentially breaking cycles
Yeah.
that's there of addiction. And so just curious if, especially living in DMV area or Atlanta or LA, there's any of those spots you find it. You can find the same thing.
When I started my practice, I had my private clients, and then I had a private contract where I worked for the Department of Disability Services. So I had a whole bunch of private clients, and then it was like I was living in two worlds. And I think God was just trying to prepare me to be able to handle everyone and anybody. But basically I had private clients. My private clients are Black women. They are dynamic. They're actresses. They're entrepreneurs. They're doctors. I have doctors as clients, DOs, MDs, nurses, right? And then in this contract, I literally was working with low income in the DC, Maryland, mental disabilities, several diagnoses, everything from AIDS, schizophrenia, bipolar, all kinds of stuff, right? Wow. And they're the most neglected population ever.
Very true.
Like, I just blew my mind how little people cared about these people.
Very true.
Really upset. So, and at the beginning, it was so interesting because I consider myself a catalyst. So if you talk to me, you're probably going to change the way you eat tomorrow. Like it's done. It's, you know, but what I found with my clients on that end, because I always consistently had results, even with those clients, to the point where the woman who gave me the contract was like, how is this even like so-and-so, you know? I had this one Dominican client who lost 30 pounds in 2 months of working with me. He was very morbidly obese. But all I did is I went and I talked to him and I listened to him. What do you like to eat? Oh, they said I can't have pizza. No, you can have pizza. We're going to do a cauliflower crust pizza. You can eat whatever you want on it. Okay, bruh? I got you. You know? So sometimes it just takes a bit of listening. And I think the biggest thing with that population was they could feel that I cared about them. And so it changes things. People, this is what health professionals need to understand. Like, even in my first job, when I worked in a clinic, what started to happen, I worked with 2 MDs, and people started to make appointments around my schedule, and it was not my practice. And it was because people could feel that I cared. It was really that simple. And sometimes just having that intention behind the work is enough to make someone go, I can tell that you're serious. You really want me to get better. Okay, I guess I'll try this thing. And, sometimes they might give you some sass or whatever, but I'll give you the sass right back. And you go ahead and try it. But one of the biggest things that I did with that population, and this is actually related to, I just got quoted for this article that came out in the LA Times. It just came out online and it's going to be in print this weekend about the US dietary guidelines. I took a whole bunch of these Black clients off of dairy who have these mental issues, who were being fed by dietitians who are following the US dietary guidelines, who are just giving these people who are lactose intolerant and have mental issues dairy 24/7. They're like, oh, have a Greek yogurt or have this or have this. I took them off and immediately their symptoms would start to improve. You know what I mean? So the dietary guidelines, we don't realize how much it bleeds into like down the funnel into like decisions that get made for people's lives, but it does. And for people of color, it really can be really bad because there's so many people who's lactose intolerant.
And those guidelines, just to even step back a little bit more, those guidelines are based on corporations and industries impressing the government, lobbying the government to make sure their products will sell. Really has nothing to do with true nutrition, which is unfortunate. I'm reading another book now on the connection between the gut microbiome and the brain. And what happens is, when you're talking about a lot of this, I forget the name of the book, but the author, he really points out well that a lot of what we call mental health issues, mood issues, and other things have everything to do with the fact that there's more serotonin receptor and activity in the gut than there is in the brain. Yeah. And so if you feed the gut wrong, especially with the bacteria, you can feed bad behavioral outcomes.
Yes, it's metabolic imbalance. They're metabolically imbalanced, all of these patients, right? And the problem is when you're working with nothing, and then you're also working with, unfortunately, teams of people who don't necessarily care about these people. Some of them were on 15, 20 medications. you know,
Polyform,
and then I'm looking at all of the nutrients that the medications are depleting, some of which are necessary for brain health. So I'm trying to figure out how do we get it back? And then you're on a budget. It's like, can I get them a multivitamin? Like, can we mix something in, you know what I mean? Can we mix something in the dinner? What can we do? It's really horrifying. But more people need to get hip. I really agree with what you just said. And more people need to get hip to the fact that, you know, gut imbalance, the gut-brain connection, very serious. I mean, I have clients with even just depression, anxiety. I had a client who literally came to me. It's like night and day. You wouldn't even recognize this as the same person. And I just recognized that she was magnesium deficient. She was anxious, but she was magnesium deficient, really. So once she got magnesium, she was like, Chad, I was at the best sleep of my life. And she's like, no one recognized her.
Wow.
So it's really important that we start to integrate, like if someone is having mood issues, yes, medication can be helpful. And yes, it is necessary in some cases. However, it is very important to look at, what does my diet look like? Do I have nutritional deficiencies? Do I have some things that could be resolved that could just improve my mood without me taking medications?
Yeah, no, that's okay. So I want, you know, as we're kind of getting closer to the end, I will be horribly failing if I don't let you address women's health, since that's such a huge component of things that you talk about. So whether or not it's like fibroids and if it's like issues in terms of menstruation and so forth. And so, you know, tell the folks out there some of the things that you do to help kind of guide them and coach them when they come and they follow you.
Yeah, sure. So where do I start with hormonal balance? So hormonal balance, like, it's just so much, Joe. But I will start with the fact that too much. But here's the thing: the biggest thing is that women are told that having crazy periods is normal. I was told this. I was told that this was fine, that I would get through it, that I would grin and bear it, that I would grow out of it, or whatever it is, right? And we need to stop that. We need to stop that now, and we need to stop it really young, because that sets people up. Because a bad period, so a woman's period is a very strong indicator of her overall health and her hormonal balance, right? So if I'm somebody who is having crazy cramps, migraines, my mood swings are crazy. I just, you know, people are like, I don't even want to talk to her, like, at that point, you know what I mean? Like, if all of that is going on, you are likely estrogen dominant or have a severe hormonal imbalance, and you need to figure that out. But the problem is, right, when we get these signs of hormonal imbalance very early on, and we're like, Mom, I'm having horrible periods. They're like, okay, let's go to your doctor. You go to your doctor, and your doctor is like, I have a solution to this crazy period. I'll give you birth control. And then you get on birth control, which stops all of those signs, right? But it's pummeling your body with synthetic hormones. And let's say you've been eating tons of dairy, and you've been eating tons of meat, and you've been eating tons of foods that actually are already pushing you towards estrogen dominance. And now I got this nice little mat added to it with birth control. And then I wake up at 35 and I want to have kids. And then I go to my gynecologist, and she's like, sorry, Jill, you got 10 fibroids. You know, and I'm like, what? What do you mean I have 10 fibroids? And literally, this is the story of most women in my practice, right? Where they've now reached the age, and it's an epidemic. It's to the point where I sometimes at the beginning wanted to weep, because I was like, I'm tired of hearing a story from a woman about how she wants to conceive, but she can't. And they've already offered her a hysterectomy, and her grandmama had a hysterectomy. Her auntie had a hysterectomy. Everybody had a hysterectomy. That is very disturbing, right? So we need to stop this. So this is part of why I got into this, because it was like, wait a minute, okay, most of my clients are Black women, and most of my clients have this problem. So I have to figure out how to solve it. And so my first client with endometriosis does not have endometriosis symptoms anymore. And it was the thing that taught me that I could do it. I was like, this is possible. This is possible. And all we did is change her diet. We used some supplementation that helped balance her hormones. We dealt with the stress component, because the stress component is huge.
Yes. Progesterone
is a precursor to cortisol. And so if I'm somebody who has just this internal stress and anxiety and perfectionism and just intensity all the time, or even just I'm dealing with racism and microaggressions, whatever that is, I might be using my progesterone to make more cortisol, and then my progesterone might lower compared to my estrogen, and then the next thing you know, I'm estrogen dominant and I'm growing fibroids and I'm growing cysts, or I have endometriosis. You see? And so the hormonal balance thing starts with educating. This is why I created a hormonal balance academy. I was like, I am done. I need to teach people about periods. Like, this is crazy. So I was like, okay, what we go do? We go teach them for a good month. We're also going to meet with them one-on-one and deal with their specific issues, all the natural therapies that can help with, the growths that have already happened, the supplements that they need to rebalance, the diet changes they need to make. Because when you get to the place of being estrogen dominant, or, I also have a lot of clients with PCOS or whatever, PCOS, endometriosis, you have to get rid of all hormonal inputs. So stop eating meat, stop eating dairy. At that point, I don't even negotiate. I'm just like, this is what it is. Okay. We've now gotten to this point, unfortunately. We need to remove all hormonal inputs so that the body has a chance to heal. And then I'm going to give you this other supplementation that's going to help you, like, your hormones actually, balance out. I'm also going to test your hormones and make sure. So we do saliva hormone testing. So we test the levels of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone throughout the entire women's cycle, and we can chart it and see it. And so we can see what's going on. We can see if the period has normalized or not. And so it's really important to look at your stress, to look at the condition of your period and be honest with yourself. If you're noticing that you have crazy mood swings, that you have clotting, that you have excessive bleeding, you need to go, first of all, get an ultrasound if you have crazy excessive bleeding, because you might have fibroids or something else, right? But then you need to really, find someone like myself or do some research on some stuff that you can do. But one of the first things you can do is go vegan. So get rid of all the stuff, the hormones. But you do need additional things to really help you to reverse that process, because you've already pummeled your body with a bunch of hormones from meat and dairy and birth control and all the stuff. So now you got to reverse it.
That's huge. That's huge. It is. Same diet that's for the heart, preserves the heart, keeps away cancer, lowers blood pressure, cholesterol. It's the same thing that can help women's health. That's huge.
And one of the things that happens, of course, when women are going through this is that they often are iron supplements and told to eat meat to get more iron.
Yeah.
And we now know that the form of iron that comes from animals, it's not good for your brain. In fact, I read one book where they're talking about how that those metals in your foods and in your even from improper supplementation can actually increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So you think about the fact that, you have these heavy periods. What do? They actually tell a lot of women to eat a lot of meat because you absorb that iron so easily because it's not regulated like iron from plants. So your iron levels go up, but what is the consequence to your brain when you get all of this extra metal?
Exactly. And all the potential hormones. Don't get me the dairy thing is the biggest thing, where I'm like, I'm gonna tell you how many times in an initial consult with someone with fibroids, they're like, I'm like, what was your diet like when you were a teenager? They're like, child, I love ice cream. I eat ice cream every day. It's like, okay. Okay, I got you. No problem.
Well, we've got some questions that we want to address, and I know we wanted to wrap up exactly at the top of the hour. And so one of the questions was, how do you become vegan with diabetes? And so they mentioned the fruits and the veggies have so much sugar.
Right. So I've had, I guess y'all could probably speak to this too, but I've had several clients that I've reversed diabetes in, and it really, it depends. It's a case-by-case thing where I'm looking at someone. Like, I've had an Indian client who was plant-based technically. She was vegetarian, but I noticed that the amount of dairy that they were consuming, a lot of Indians have diabetes. I used to have a lot of Indian clients and be like, what is it about this diet that's messing them up? But I think genetically it doesn't work, the dairy, but because it's so heavy in the diet, so many people end up with like these other conditions. So you kind of have to look case by case, but I wouldn't be so scared of fruit. I would focus more on the low glycemic fruits if you wanted to, like berries and all of that stuff at the beginning. I'm eating a lot more greens. avoiding. I mean, some people are like, I can't eat a green juice unless it has 5 apples in it. Well, try to cut it down to 2, but you really shouldn't be so scared of fruit per se. It's really an individual thing that I have to look at and see what is this person's thing, because their thing might be I'm eating fast food and I'm eating, crazy amounts of fat and I'm eating all this other stuff that is causing this imbalance. I don't, you know what I mean? And then intermittent fasting is also huge. Look up Dr. Jason Fung, and he was one of the first people I looked up when I started working with a lot of clients with diabetes. And I was like, intermittent fasting, this is really cool. Can very, very much help to stabilize your blood sugar levels, but you should do it with your practitioner in mind, so that if you're on medication, you can slowly take that medication down as your blood sugar levels stabilize.
Yeah. There's a question, and we get this a lot, but what about soy? What are your thoughts on soy?
So
take a deep breath and go.
Here's my thing. Okay.
I just lean in.
Maybe I should lean. I don't know. Here's my thing. This is what I had to ask myself. And this is something that I find very intriguing, which is why I'm interested in nutrigenomics and genetics and cultural backgrounds, because I do think it really matters sometimes with food. Right. And so for me, soy jacked up my cycles. It was part of the issue for me hormonally. And when I cut it out, my life changed. I felt better. And I really asked myself, my African ancestors from Nigeria in Edo State, were they eating soy? No, they were not. I'll leave that joint alone. I'll be good over here with my with the stuff that I know, the greens, the okra, you know what I mean? The stuff that I know. I'm doing that. And so there's all these great studies on soy, but is there a lot of studies on soy and Black people or people of African descent? There's not that many studies when it comes to the genetics and cultural stuff. And so I always say that sounds great, but that might not be for me. That might be for Becky and her friends. So I'm gonna be over here eating what I know works for me. I'm not saying, so I think that soy works for some people, but I'm saying for me in particular, it doesn't. And so what I do with my clients is I also offer them, because some of them are also, I don't really like to work with soy with my hormonal balancing clients, because I don't want any variables that I can't figure out or control, especially if I'm dealing with someone with fibroids or something like that. Right. So I give them things like PUMFU, pumpkin seed tofu. People love that stuff. It's literally just pumpkin seeds and it works just like tofu. There's like chickpea tofu now. There's so many different things that you could still do things that you would do with tofu. Right. But I tend to personally stay away from it. But I think for some people it could work. I just think that we got to be a little bit more nuanced about who it might work for.
and with soy, the other thing is to think about, in America, a lot of the soy is genetically modified. And so, there's that component of soy in a lot of the products that people eat in the States, at least.
Yeah. Someone asked the question, what do you think of camu camu? I think did I pronounce it right?
Berry. I love camu camu. Camu camu is a great superfood, and it's high in vitamin C. It's very high in vitamin C. So if you wanted to just, get a nice little dose. Another one to get a lot of vitamin C from is acerola cherries or acerola cherry powder. That's also really high in vitamin C, similar to the baobab. So those are some of my favorite. I like camu camu. It is it is a bit bitter. I remember working in a clinic and with these dietitians, and I had camu camu in my office. So people would come in and we would take shots. We would take shots of camu camu if people were sick that day and they came in and we were like, I don't know, let's just take a shot of camu camu just in case we got a lot of extra vitamin C.
Okay. Well, that's probably a better shot than the one most of, and so the other question is, what we're getting a lot of is just, how do they sign up for your classes and how do they engage with you, personally and or in a group setting?
Sure. So you can go to my website, therawgirl.com. I have another nutritionist who's also a CNS who works in my practice too. So it's both of us. The best way to start with working with us is sign up for an initial 20-minute call, and that's free. We can talk to you about whatever your health issue is, figure out what might be the best fit for you. I'm really big on the best fit. I want people to actually get a result. So we're going to send you wherever we think will work the best for you. If you want to work with me personally, totally possible. My roster stays full, but I always open it up whenever someone, finishes their plan or whatever it is. And our courses are on stayingagelessuniversity.com. And we have Staying Ageless 30 Plus, my longevity class that I was talking about, where women have lost 30 pounds, they've reversed diabetes, hypertension, off their meds. That's starting again February 28th. We actually just booked someone in for that today. So if you want to join that class, this would be the time to sign up for a call and get on in. And then we have the Hormonal Balancing Academy, and that is ongoing because I really want to solve this epidemic. There's an epidemic of misinformation about women's cycles, about hormones,
right.
PCOS, fibroids, menopausal issues. I've also helped women get rid of their hot flashes and stuff because there's stuff behind that a lot of people don't understand. All that stuff, you can come through for the Hormonal Balancing Academy. We work with our hormonal balancing patients for a minimum of 6 months. That's why we created it, so that we can really work with them through the process, because sometimes I have to help people get off of birth control to even begin the process. And the drama that starts, so that takes 3 months by itself, because I'm trying to do it safely so they don't have any adverse reactions or anything like that. And then we have a new program called Detox My Life that will launch on February 7th. And that's a plant-based detox. It's a 30-day plant-based detox. It includes a couple days of smoothie cleanse. And then we have all these plant-based recipes. But I also take you through some important principles to understand about changing your habits, etc. We have an immune boosting protocol that has worked really well. I've had several clients recover from COVID using my immune boosting protocol, including my uncle, the doctor. Did too. And then, so these are, all of those are on stayingagelessuniversity.com or therawgirl.com.
Fantastic. I know we only have a few more minutes, but when you say raw, it's intimidating. So does that mean that if you are raw, you don't eat anything that is cooked? What does being raw means?
So raw, oh, wait, hold on one second. Sorry.
Do you guys know? Do you guys want to build it a little bit while she's...
I think her explanation was going to be most
My computer was literally about to die. Okay. So being raw is you're eating unprocessed food. So you're eating food that hasn't been cooked over a certain temperature. Sometimes there's, I think, I said 118 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that.
Okay.
It's really about eating. So you're blending foods, you're food processing foods, you're dehydrating foods. It is intimidating. It can be very challenging for a lot of people to know where to even begin. I was a raw foodist completely for 2 years or so. And then now I just eat a lot of raw food. I try not to eat that much cooked food. And I'm kind of now in the next 2 years, I'm transitioning back to being mostly raw again. And that's because I'm trying to catch up with the ageless woman and some of these people who are 60 plus and fly, and they're on the raw diet.
Chef Babette.
Chef Babette, yes, child, please sign me up.
Yes, but you know how we love our cooked food. I mean, there's even that saying, I love you like I love cooked food, you want to be.
There's nothing wrong with cooked food. It's really just a level of a plant-based diet. And it's really just another extreme, but Dr. Montgomery has used it, and shown how quickly you can help someone recover because you've really removed so much of
things of that nature
from that body. You see, so you could see how over time that person would age slower because there's less toxins really be expelled. Really, that's all it is. So it's not really like, oh, my diet is better than yours. It's really just a matter of do I want maximum efficiency? Can I handle it? Or do I want, so for me, it's about my longevity journey, and that's why I'm into it. But I know that it's not really sustainable for a lot of people, but I do have, for instance, I have some fibroid patients now who are on a raw food diet, because I'm in a phase with them where I'm intensely working to rebalance their hormones. And so for some of them, we found like there's raw food delivery services. There's one in LA. My client who's a screenwriter is doing a Rawvolution, where she gets the food delivered to her. So she then doesn't have to even try to figure it out. She just has to eat it.
Right.
So, it can be time consuming. It can be a lot of things. It's one of the things I want to do is create another course for my Staying Ageless University on raw food. And I want to try to make it as accessible as possible, because I feel like it's a little bit, it's hard for people,
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, this has been great. I think for me, why this was so incredible is that, on our platform for Slave Food, we walk folks through the journey of the impact of stress, of impact of discrimination, how that impacts a person's health. We speak to the transition to this concept of nutritional stress and how we equate our foods to stress, either our reactive nature and or the foods that we're eating, how it causes the stressors in our body, and walking them through our environments, this crucible. But one of the things we don't focus enough on are people like you, people in the end, towards the end, what we call the plantscription, and people who are breaking the chains and liberation nutrition. And that's what you're talking about. Liberation nutrition, that you're trying to liberate people of African descent and others too as well from the chains of disease is really what you're speaking to, and walking them through how foods of the earth that have been created, that are there for them, can really are there for our healing and benefit and so forth. So I definitely applaud you and what you're doing, and it's been a pleasure having you on.
You're a delight, and you light up the screen, which is really nice, and really have a really good spirit, which when you're dealing with difficult subjects like this is incredibly helpful. And you're right, you come from a place of authenticity. That's why no matter which client you were working with, they saw that you actually cared and you really wanted them to be helped, which is something I've noticed that is very unique of our people from Western Africa. There is a true kindness that sometimes is missing in the West. I remember being in Ghana, and I'd walk into a place and they would greet me and say, "You're welcome."
Right.
And I'd be like, "Thank you." Like, in America it's backwards, and you have that. You have that. So that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
All right. So we're gonna get ready to sign off. For those of you who've joined us, thank you once again for joining us on another episode, our first episode of the new year. Esosa has christened our launching of Slave Food Project for 2021, and we're appreciative of her. Next week, we're planning on having we start our series on the diaspora of disease, and we're looking at Zip Codes Matter with Dr. Anthony Eiton from the California Endowment. So definitely stay tuned. You can catch a replay of Esosa on here. You know where to find her at where, Esosa? The Raw?
TheRawGirl.com.
That's right.
And we will be sending links to this. I'm gonna send this to all the women in my extended family to watch this and be inspired by you, like I have been. So yeah, we gotta get you. We gotta push you out there as much as we possibly can. That was very powerful.
Absolutely. All right. Looking forward to next time we connect. And to all of you, we'll see you next week.